I was floored when my 22-year-old nephew, Liam, leaned close and murmured, "Aunt Emma, nobody's ever impressed me like you do." Right then, something clicked inside me, and I knew life wouldn't be the same. I'm Emma, 42, happily married, and up until that quiet night, I'd only ever seen Liam as family. But a single look, a small gesture, and words he couldn't keep inside flipped everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and where to draw the line. What do you do when someone you trust looks at you in a way that catches you off guard? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm curious. Where's the boundary between affection and something deeper? I'm Emma, 42, and I used to think my life was rock solid, unshakable. I don't have kids, but that's never left me feeling empty. I've got Mark, my husband of 16 years, and a job I genuinely enjoy. Our life isn't flashy, but it's cozy and tight-knit, enough to make me feel like I was exactly where I belonged. That all started shifting one Saturday night. My sister-in-law, Sarah, threw a small party at her place for her son Liam's 22nd birthday. Liam's always been special to me, maybe because I don't have kids of my own, so the bond we share feels a little deeper than your typical aunt-nephew thing. The kid who used to tear around the backyard is now a tall, confident guy with a stare that makes you pay attention. I still called him kid, even though he could meet my gaze and talk with a sharpness and charm that stood out. The party was warm and lively, with Sarah pulling out all the stops to make it perfect. Glasses of wine clinked, and laughter bounced around the dining room. Mark, my husband, joined in the toasts with his usual cheer. He's not a big talker, but family gatherings loosen him up, and it's no surprise when he gets a bit tipsy. As the night wound down and folks started heading out, Mark leaned into me, slurring softly that he was dizzy and might need a hand getting to the car. This wasn't new, Mark's had a few wobbly nights before. But before I could steady him, I felt a gentle touch on my arm. "I've got this, Aunt Emma," Liam said, his voice calm and kind, his eyes locking with mine for a moment that made me pause. Together, we guided Mark to the car. On the drive home, Mark dozed in the back, leaving Liam and me up front. For the first time in ages, it was just us, no party chatter or family expectations, only two people talking under the city's soft nighttime glow. Liam opened up about college, his dreams, and even the stuff that weighed him down. I listened, grinning now and then, struck by how the boy I once knew had grown into someone so thoughtful. There was a warmth in his voice, a quiet strength that stirred something in me, not wrong, but unfamiliar, hard to pin down. When we got home, we helped Mark to bed. He was out cold the second his head hit the pillow. I knelt to slip off his shoes, a small ritual I'd done for years with love. Liam stood in the doorway, respectful, not crossing into our private space. When I glanced at him, his eyes met mine, soft, but with a flicker of something new, just for a heartbeat. "Thanks, Liam," I said, keeping my tone steady. He smiled faintly. "Anytime, Aunt Emma." I had no clue that this tiny moment, a look, a simple phrase, would crack open a door I never thought I'd face. After tucking Mark in, I stepped into the living room. Liam was still there, sitting quietly with a glass of water he hadn't touched. The house felt oddly still, like the world was holding its breath, waiting. I grabbed a glass of water from the kitchen and came back to find Liam by the window, staring out, though his mind seemed miles away. "Emma, can you hang out for a bit?" he asked, his voice low but genuine. I nodded and sat beside him. A quiet settled between us, not weird, just heavy with something unspoken. "You've always been easy to talk to," Liam said, twisting his glass in his hands. "Even when I was a kid, I knew if I couldn't tell Mom or Dad something, I could come to you." My heart warmed, and I smiled. "You know I'm always here for you." He turned to me then, his eyes carrying a weight I wasn't used to seeing. "Lately, I'm changing, Emma. Things that used to make sense are all mixed up." I tilted my head. "Mixed up how?" Liam hesitated, then said, "Feelings I didn't have before. They're tough to name, even tougher to say out loud, because they feel off, maybe." A quiet tension crept up my spine, a faint warning I couldn't shake. I set my glass down and took a slow breath. "Are we talking about someone specific?" He nodded. Someone I probably shouldn't feel this way about. I stayed quiet, but deep down, I started to sense where this was going, and my pulse quickened. Emma, Liam said, his voice shaky but steady, I'm not sure if what I feel is okay or not, but when I'm around you, everything's both messy and right. I flinched, just a touch. This wasn't a nephew venting to his aunt anymore. The air felt charged, a subtle shift I couldn't ignore. Liam, I said gently, you're young, and sometimes strong feelings for people close to you can blur lines. He looked at me, his gaze trying to hold on to something new, something fragile. I don't want to freak you out, but I can't keep bottling this up. I stood, needing space to think, but as I turned, I heard his chair shift. He stepped closer, not too close, just enough to rest a gentle hand on mine. That was it, but the moment froze. I turned to face him, seeing not the kid I remembered but a man, conflicted yet honest. I eased my hand away. Liam, we can't always choose what we feel, but we can choose what we do. You get me? He nodded, a shadow of disappointment crossing his face, but he wasn't upset, just quiet. You're amazing, I said, soft but firm. And out there, plenty of people will see that in the right way. He gave a slow, heavy smile. Thanks, Emma. I just needed to get it off my chest. I nodded, and as Liam headed back to the living room, I slipped into the bedroom. The room felt too quiet, almost foreign. Mark was still fast asleep, his steady breaths a familiar comfort. But tonight, they didn't ground me. I leaned against the closed door, my eyes drifting to the window where streetlights cast faint, blurry shadows across the floor. I felt like an outsider in my own world. I'd grown so used to everything fitting neatly, love staying where it belonged, all within reason. But Liam's words, his look, that raw honesty, it was like tossing a pebble into a calm lake. Not enough to cause a storm, but enough to send ripples spreading, stirring things I'd never dared to face. I sank onto the bed's edge, my fingers clutching the blanket like it could steady me. The life I knew felt different now, and I wasn't sure what that meant. When my nephew Liam, just 22, leaned in close and whispered, Aunt Emma, I've never looked up to anyone the way I do you, I was stunned. In that instant, something deep inside me shifted, and I knew things could never go back to normal. I'm Emma, 42, married, and until that quiet evening, Liam was just family to me. But one glance, a small gesture, and words he couldn't hold and turned my understanding of love, loyalty, and boundaries upside down. What do you do when someone you've always trusted sees you in a way you didn't see coming? Share your thoughts below, I'm dying to know. Where do you draw the line between care and something more? I'm Emma, 42, and I used to think my life was steady as a rock, nothing could rattle it. I don't have kids, but that's never made me feel like I'm missing out. I've got Mark, my husband for 16 years, and a job that I actually look forward to. Our life's not glamorous, but it's warm and connected, enough to make me think I had it all figured out. That started to change one Saturday night. Sarah, my sister-in-law, hosted a little get-together at her place for her son Liam's 22nd birthday. Liam's always held a special spot in my heart, maybe because I don't have kids, so our connection feels a bit stronger than the usual aunt and nephew deal. The little guy who used to race around the yard is now a tall, self-assured man with eyes that make you stop and notice. I still called him kid, even though he could look me square in the eye and talk with a wit and confidence that stood out. The party was full of warmth, with Sarah going all out to make it just right. Wine glasses clinked, and laughter filled the dining room. Mark, my husband, joined in the toasts with his usual good spirits. He's not the loudest guy, but family events bring out his fun side, and it's no shock when he has one too many. As the night wrapped up and people started leaving, Mark leaned against me, mumbling that he was woozy and needed help to the car. This wasn't the first time Mark's had his share of tipsy nights. But before I could prop him up, a soft hand touched my arm. Let me handle it, Aunt Emma, Liam said, his voice steady and warm, his gaze catching mine for a split second that made me freeze. We got Mark to the car together. Driving home, Mark snoozed in the back, leaving just me and Liam up front. For the first time in forever, it was only us, no party buzz or family roles, just two people chatting under the city's gentle night lights. Liam shared about school, his big plans, and even the things that troubled him. I listened, smiling here and there, amazed at how the kid I once knew had become so insightful. There was a depth in his tone, a quiet confidence that tugged at something inside me, not bad, but new, tough to describe. When we reached the house, we helped Mark to bed. He was out like a light the moment he hit the pillow. I knelt to pull off his shoes, a loving habit I'd kept for years. Liam stood in the doorway, polite, not stepping into our personal space. When I looked up, his eyes met mine, gentle, but with a spark of something different, just for a moment. "Thanks a ton, Liam," I said, keeping my voice even. He gave a small smile. "Always here for you, Aunt Emma." I didn't realize that this fleeting exchange, a glance, a simple line, would open a door I never expected to find. After settling Mark, I walked back to the living room. Liam was still there, sitting with a glass of water he hadn't sipped. The house felt strangely hushed, like everything was waiting for something to happen. I grabbed some water from the kitchen and returned to see Liam by the window, staring outside, though his thoughts seemed far off. "Emma, can you stick around for a bit?" he asked, his voice soft but honest. I nodded and took a seat next to him. A silence hung between us, not awkward, just loaded with something unsaid. "You've always been someone I could talk to," Liam said, turning his glass in his hands. "Even as a kid, I knew if I couldn't tell Mom or Dad something, you'd listen." My heart softened, and I smiled. "You know I've got your back." He looked at me then, his eyes heavier than I was used to. "Things are different now, Emma. Stuff that used to be clear is all jumbled up." I raised an eyebrow. "Jumbled how?" Liam paused, then said, "Feelings I didn't have before. They're hard to put into words, even harder to say, because they seem wrong, maybe." A faint tightness climbed my back, a quiet warning I couldn't ignore. I put my glass down and breathed deep. "Is this about someone in particular?" He nodded. "Someone I shouldn't be thinking about like this." I didn't speak, but inside, I started to piece it together, and my heart raced. "Emma," Liam said, his voice trembling but firm, "I don't know if what I'm feeling is right or wrong, but when I'm near you, it's like everything's tangled but also safe." I stiffened slightly. This wasn't just a nephew opening up anymore. The room felt electric, a subtle change I couldn't brush off. "Liam," I said softly, "you're young, and sometimes close bonds can make feelings get blurry." He held my gaze, like he was reaching for something delicate, something new. "I don't want to make you uneasy, but I can't keep this inside forever." I stood up, needing a moment to clear my head, but as I turned, I heard his chair move. He stepped closer, not too near, just close enough to place a gentle hand on mine. That was all, but time seemed to pause. I turned to him violated, only to see not the boy I knew, but a man, torn yet sincere. I slowly pulled my hand back. "Liam, we can't control every feeling, but we can control what we do with them. You follow me?" He nodded, a hint of sadness in his eyes, but he wasn't mad, just still. "You're incredible," I said, gentle but clear. "And there's a world of people out there who'll see that the right way." He offered a slow, weighted smile. "Thanks, Emma." I just had to let it out to breathe easier. I nodded, and as Liam drifted back to the living room, I stepped into the bedroom. The room felt too silent, almost strange. Mark was still deep asleep, his steady breathing a familiar anchor. But tonight, it didn't settle me. I pressed against the closed door, my gaze wandering to the window where streetlights painted soft, hazy shadows on the floor. I felt like I didn't belong in my own life. I'd gotten so comfortable with everything in its place, love staying where it should, all sensible. But Liam's confession, his eyes, that raw truth, it was like dropping a small stone into a still pond. Not enough to start a tempest, but enough for ripples to spread, waking up feelings I'd never thought to explore. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers gripping the blanket like it could hold me steady. My world felt different now, and I didn't know what to make of it. Liam didn't try to hold me back. He just gave a small nod, his face not showing disappointment but a quiet knowing, like he'd seen this coming. I'd let things slip too far, and now my sense of right and wrong was banging on the door, ready to take back its rightful spot. I wandered into the kitchen and started brewing some coffee. The warm, earthy smell filled the air, calming my nerves a bit. When I turned, Liam was there, leaning casually against the doorframe, dressed in a plain gray tee, his hair still messy from sleep. He watched me quietly, not stepping closer, not walking away. The silence hung heavy until I finally broke it. "Liam, about last night, nothing happened," I started, but he cut in, his voice steady but sure. "I know, Emma. You don't need to say it." I stopped cold. Part of me felt lighter, but another part felt a strange, hollow ache. "I get it," he added, grabbing a glass of water. "I crossed a line by spilling those feelings. I'm sorry." I shook my head. "No, you don't owe me an apology. Feelings aren't the problem, it's about putting them where they belong." Liam gave a faint nod. "I'm not asking for anything from you. I just had to be real with myself and say it out loud." I looked at him, hoping with all my heart that we could leave it here, that these emotions would fade like the rain from last night. But deep down, I knew once a door like this cracks open, it never fully shuts. "You're a man now, Liam," I said softly. "And I've got to protect what I built, my family, my trust, my life with Mark." Mark's name hit me like a clear, sharp note, reminding me why I couldn't stray. Liam offered a sad smile, no bitterness in it. "I hear you. I'll back off if that's what you need." "Thanks," I said, nodding as I poured another cup of coffee. In that moment, we stood like travelers at a fork in the road, not moving forward, not retreating, just paused, recognizing something had shifted. From that morning on, things between Liam and me were carefully normal. He kept his word, no more long looks, no more subtle hints, no more accidental touches. He acted like the perfect nephew, polite, kind, proper, almost too distant. And instead of feeling relieved, I found myself emptier than I'd expected. Mark, my husband, had no clue about any of it. He's always been a good man, thoughtful in his quiet way, loving me steadily, safely. But maybe because of that, there were moments I felt like my life was a song stuck on repeat, pleasant but flat, no highs or lows, just blending into the background. One afternoon, I was sitting alone in the backyard when Liam showed up with a basket of fresh oranges he'd picked up from a nearby farm. I thanked him and started to head inside when he spoke up. "Aunt Emma, you holding up okay lately?" I turned back. His eyes held genuine concern, no agenda. I nodded, forcing a small smile. "Same as always." Liam settled into the wooden chair next to me, keeping a respectful gap. "Me too," he said. "But some things, no matter how much we pretend they're gone, they stick around." I didn't answer, just watched the leaves drift onto the wet tiles. A breeze tugged at my hair, carrying a quiet pang I couldn't name. "What do you do," Liam asked softly, "when you choose to stay quiet, but your heart keeps talking?" I swallowed hard, meeting his gaze. His eyes were clear, not pushing, not scheming, just true. "I think time will sort it out," I said, letting out a breath. "You'll find someone right for you, someone younger, less messy." He shook his head slowly. "Not everyone's looking for easy, Emma. Some folks just want something real, even if it's hard." I looked away, my feelings knotted up like a tangled mess of thread I couldn't unravel. I'd worked so hard to keep my distance, but now that he wasn't reaching out, I was the one feeling the gap. Liam's silence stung more than I'd imagined. Mark's voice called from the kitchen, asking about the salad. I stood quickly. "Be right there," I said. Liam nodded, letting me go. But as I passed, his hand brushed mine, light as a feather, yet it echoed inside me like a deep, resonant hum. I glanced back, silent. Our eyes locked for a fleeting moment. That split second was enough to make it clear, these tiny moments, no matter how carefully dodged, were like quiet whispers, and I wasn't sure I could tune them out forever. A week after that backyard moment, I decided I needed to talk to Liam one last time, not to hash things out or explain, but to close this chapter as gently as I could. I asked him to meet me at the old cafe by the park, where we used to hang out with family years ago. Liam got there early, as usual, sitting in a quiet corner. Sunlight poured through the window, softening his features, his eyes holding a spark of understanding, like he already knew what was coming. "I need to talk," I began, clutching my steaming coffee cup, "not as your aunt, but as a woman who's lived a lot of life." Liam didn't speak, just tilted his head, waiting. "You woke something in me," I admitted. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be really seen, really heard. And I'm thankful for that. His lips trembled slightly, holding back emotion. "But because of that, I can't let this go any further. Even if no one else knows, even if nothing's happened, we know. And that's enough." Liam looked down, his voice low and heavy. "I figured you'd say that. I don't want to hurt Mark," I said. "But more than that, I don't want you chasing something that can't be, wasting your youth." I set my hand on the table near his, not touching. "Hold on to that feeling. Let it grow into something good, something right." Liam lifted his eyes, shimmering with something unnamed. Then he nodded, soft and slow. 4. "I never wanted anything from you, Emma," Liam said softly, his voice steady but carrying a weight that filled the quiet cafe. "I just needed to be straight with you, just that one time. And now I get it." We didn't break down in tears or reach for each other's hands. Instead, we sat there, wrapped in a few moments of stillness, each holding on to a fragment of something we both knew would probably never come back. When Liam stood up, he flashed a smile, wiser than his 22 years, like he'd aged a lifetime in that single conversation. "I'm heading overseas for school soon," he said, his tone calm but deliberate. "Might be the best thing for both of us." I nodded, even as a quiet ache bloomed in my chest, like a hollow space I hadn't noticed before. "Yeah," I said, my voice softer than I meant. "I hope you find happiness, Liam, whether it's with someone special or just in your own skin." "I hope the same for you," he replied, his eyes steady, kind. "Find your joy, Emma, however it comes." Then he turned, his steps slow but sure, his shoulders straight as he walked out of the cafe. I stayed behind, alone at the table, the weight of the moment settling over me like a heavy quilt. My coffee had gone cold, the steam long gone. Outside, the world was shifting into autumn, golden leaves drifting lazily in the breeze, catching the afternoon light. That night, when Mark got home, he slipped his arms around me from behind, pulling me close in that familiar, grounding way of his. It was like he could sense something had ended, something I couldn't put into words. I turned to face him, offering a small, gentle smile. There was no need to explain, no need to unpack the quiet storm that had been stirring inside me. Sometimes, growing up isn't about clinging to every feeling or moment, it's about figuring out when to let go and how to tuck the best parts away in your heart, safe and silent. Liam's honesty, that fleeting connection, had blown into my life like a soft, unexpected breeze. It wasn't loud or destructive, but it was enough to shake something deep inside me, to make me question things I'd taken for granted. I didn't ask for those feelings, didn't seek them out, but they came anyway. And in the end, I chose to face them head-on, not by giving in, but by honoring their truth while keeping my life steady. I chose to protect what I'd built with Mark, to preserve the sincerity of that moment with Liam without letting it unravel everything else. To me, that's what growing up really means. It's not about grabbing hold of every emotion that sparks inside you. It's about learning where to place those feelings, how to carry them so they don't break you or the people you love. It's about living fully, not just for yourself, but for the promises you've made and the bonds you've nurtured. What do you think about the path I chose? If you were in my shoes, would you let go with honesty, like I did, or would you hold on to that quiet, complicated feeling a little longer? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sometimes even a small perspective can feel like a warm hand on the shoulder for someone navigating their own crossroads.